tracking. ESPN's Mark Schlabach has them as the second best team in the SEC West. They're getting a lot of praise right now. What would your message be if you're Sam Pittman in that locker room to keep them focused on the task that is Saturday?
Well, I think that they haven't had enough success to be able to think that, we can roll out there and whip somebody. But Sam delivered the message, I think, on Tuesday when he said that I did not like the practice. And he, basically broadcast that publicly. And it's all about what your focus is like. And he did detail later yesterday that some of that had to do with you've got a scout team on offense that's running an offense that's not very familiar with them. And he didn't like the tempo that they were running the Georgia Southern offense with. Because when you watch a game, it comes at you so fast. And if you're out there in practice, you can feel that the tempo is dragging. It throws you off, and as a coach, you're frustrated by it. So he thought last night's practice was a lot better. They got some 2s versus 1s, and Malik Hornby ran that Georgia Southern triple option, and he felt better about it. But it's just human nature when you're a rival that every fan in your fan base was just waiting on you to whip somebody, and you do it to your rival. It's only human nature that it's harder to get back up for the next opponent. Yeah. But we'll find out a lot about like the internal mechanisms within the Razorback ship and their focus when Saturday.
All right, let me tell you my take on that. I think we all agree that we're expecting a sluggish start, and whether we get one or not remains to be seen. But here's why I think it's important to get out early and put the baby to bed by halftime. I want to be able to sit Catalan, Poole, Morgan, Henry, maybe Ridgeway, Williams, all in the second half, Tom. And here's why: it's not that I want to save their legs, preserve injury. I want to take 0 chances of a targeting call in the second half of Georgia Southern that would limit them in any way, shape, or form for the first half of A&M. What do you think on that take?
I think that's a fine take, and I don't know if you can get away with all those guys, but I think a huge selection of those, it would be nice that you don't have to run that risk. Because Think about this, y'all. In game 1, there were 2 targeting calls on Arkansas. One cost Grant Morgan almost the whole game. The other one cost Bumper Poole the first half of Texas. Now, last week, there was a couple of plays that if you looked at them, the four-top, that's a helmet-to-helmet.
Yep.
I think there might have been some kind of national directive given out because there were so many of those, like the Ole Miss game had so many, that, hey, look, guys, if this is between the tackles, if it's just the natural flow of the game, let's hold off on the knee-jerk targeting. I could be wrong, but it felt like that last week.
It felt like, and I'll be interested to see because I didn't watch as many other. I was at the game, so I didn't see as many other SEC. That being a Big 12 crew, it made me wonder if the Big 12 has just got a different threshold for when they're going to call targeting versus when the SEC crews are going to call targeting. But the one that came under the spotlight in review with, I believe it's Jackson Woodard that came in there in the goal line review. Tom, I thought for sure, well, he's going to miss some time next week, and ended up not being the case.
Yeah, and I did not see that play like at the time. I've heard people talking about it since that was they thought for sure. Mm-hmm. But Greg McElroy and the John Perry, the TV officials analyst, both thought that Hayden Henry's hit on Bijan Robinson would certainly come under review. And I think the TV came back and said that the booth looked at it and said, nope, play on. And so that's why I hope that there's been this reduction in the intensity of targeting in just inside the tackles. Running back lowers his head, and that's just the contact.
Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, I heard Sam Pittman say yesterday they were using a little bit of Malik Hornby to get this defense ready with the potent triple option attack that they'll be facing. It was Renfro and Lucas Coley, but they're putting a little bit of Hornsby in. How much is that going to help him with the speed of Hornsby and what they could potentially see on Saturday?
Right, yeah, and I mentioned that a second ago that I think Sam Pittman, it will, it'll certainly help the Arkansas defense with the way you try to fit up the blocking scheme. If you understand what's coming at you, and you got a fast guy running it, it just helps you. Mm-hmm. and Arkansas's got option elements in its game. I mean, not the triple option, but so that that'll obviously help Malik Hornsby too. And I would really like, as Tommy was pointing out, playing time. It would be really good for the Razorbacks to get guys like Malik Hornsby, some of those freshmen, throw some passes to the Keytron Jacksons of the world and Jaquaylin Crawfords. I mean, get them involved in the game a little bit more, just to just have your roster feeling well. And we'll see. I mean, this is the kind of game that the Razorbacks have struggled with in recent years, and to think that they could get a few touchdown lead and play more reserves in the second half would be a wonderful thing.
Tom, one of the keys in that will be blocking in the red zone. Sam Pittman said when he went back and looked at the tape, they weren't great in that area, and Arkansas could have won that game by a lot more than just 40-21 if they would have hit some key blocks. Is that something that you think will be a heavy emphasis this week, is just red zone production and execution?
Oh, it definitely was, and it's got to be better. In an SEC game, if you trade field goals and touchdowns that many times, inside of 10, no less, and inside of 5 even, it could come back and haunt you. And, had Texas been up, come back to haunt them in that game. But I think some receivers were involved in some of the missed blocks. And he also pointed out, a different part of the field, but the Blake Kern, the little pass out in the right flats, somebody whipped on a block, and Kern basically got kneecapped, and it would have been lost yardage, but he ended up not catching the pass. But the way Sam described it is, if I'm Blake Kern and we call that play, I'm like, nah, let's run something different. Because you hate to see a back bearing down on a receiver's knees when they catch it and their backs to the defense.
Yeah. Tom, a few times last week, Texas took some deep shots downfield. It looked like they had opportunities open, but the quarterbacks just missed the receivers. Is that something that we should be concerned about moving forward? I would think there would be opposing offensive coordinators taking notes on that. I don't know if Georgia Southern will be the kind of offense this week that will, but is that concerning to you moving forward about the deep balls and the way Arkansas seemed to let a few receivers get behind the corners, behind the safeties, and have some open looks?
Oh, absolutely it is. And, SEC coordinators are going to see those plays and go, wow. Jordan Whittington had a ball that if he just catches, it's a huge pass, but he bobbled it, and Jalen Catalon was right there to block, and knock it away. But, I want to say 3 times. He had Whittington in the end zone one time and overthrew him. It was right before the 52-yard field goal miss. So their time, we caught breaks like that in a game. So those are very helpful to Arkansas's cause, because had the Whittington end zone pass in the first, one of the deep plays in the second, it could have been a different, tighter game. Arkansas eventually imposed their will and broke Texas' spirits. But with those plays, it could be a different game.
Tom, before we let you go, I don't know if you saw John Ridgeway, his interview with the SEC Network earlier this week. But at the end of the interview, they asked him, hey, John, anywhere in Fayetteville, where you can take us, where are you going to go? And he kind of paused, thought for a second, said, well, there's McDonald's right up the street. You can get a Happy Meal if you want. And that's just kind of the comedic relief that he kind of provides. Sam Pittman, we're going to get into this audio coming up about John. Just how much has he elevated the defensive line after they lost Jonathan Marshall to the NFL draft?
Quite a lot. He's a cool kid. What an ad. If you could add a guy like that to your roster every year, you talk about the depth at nose. You talk about the guy fought off block. He had 6 in the game against Texas, y'all, including a sack. So huge. And who were we talking to? I think Fouché this week said it's basically like having John Marshall in there, a quick twitch guy who's also big and tough. And what a big deal on Arkansas's depth having Ridgeway.
And not an unreasonable thought. He'd have made quite a difference in the Rice game had he been able to play it. So,
yeah, well, absolutely. He gave them, I want to say, 42 snaps and or 24 snaps, and he had 6 tackles on 24 snaps. That's pretty doggone good.
Mm-hmm. Tom, appreciate it, buddy. We'll recap it on Monday. Hopefully, we'll recap in a big time, not just win, but a cover for the Ridgebacks as well.
Yeah. All right. Talk to y'all then, man. Have a good one.
It's that time of the year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all of the pro and college football action this season. Get all of the updated odds, props, and contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, the world's largest 200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Here's what you have to do. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.